Welcome, Rehmah. We really appreciate your leadership and taking the time to be with us today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So as always, we like to begin things by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on, as well as our ancestors and those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We like to acknowledge our elders and community stewards whose shoulders that we continue to stand on as we build and share and learn for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So again, thank you so much for being here. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know the origins of the original work that you're doing and let us know how it impacts our community.
Yeah, my name is Rehmah Kasule, originally from Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. I say that proudly because I am who I am today because of where I come from. And a great elder said, if you don't know where you've been, you never know where to go. So I always acknowledge where I come from.
I love that. Can you let us know a bit about the work that you do?
Yeah, sure. So the work I do cuts across so many, I wear so many hats also to speak, cuts across from social impact work and supporting nonprofits, girls' education, women's leadership, the future of work, looking at creating more employment pathways for young people. And education is really important among the things I do because education is the game changer for a lot of young people to break the intergenerational cycles of poverty. So I work with children as early as 4 years. I write books, I'm an author, so I develop children's content. I work with girls' education, supporting them to stay and transition from school into work. And I support youth to start businesses. I support women to run for political and public offices. I do everything because there's so much in the world that needs our support.
Absolutely, that is remarkable work. So from the children right up into politicians, I appreciate that you're doing the work across the board. Can you tell us a bit about Ceda? What is the mission and vision of Ceda?
So Ceda is Century Entrepreneurship Development Agency. I started it in 2009, really to create a mindset about entrepreneurship as a career option. And I did that because I started my business when I was 24 years and everyone thought I was crazy. How do you leave a job to start a business? And I made it my vision and mission to support other young people and especially women to start and run their businesses, not little businesses, but big businesses. So really we focus on that. How can we create more businesses? That was the first focus. And then we realized that there was a leadership gap in Uganda and other African countries. So now what we are doing is to create a generation of value-based leaders and entrepreneurs in Africa.
Wow, that's definitely necessary, not just Africa, but everywhere, including right here in Canada. But I think it's so important, definitely, to, like you said, start with the mindset to even consider entrepreneurship. It's definitely lacking in our community sometimes. So what would you say inspires you most about your work?
I think for me, the main inspiration comes from hearing the stories of the girls and the women that I've supported. That's the main inspiration. So every day, I know that when I wake up, I have an opportunity to make a difference. So for example, one of the girls I've supported, Sandra Batakana, Sandra, when I met her in 2011, she was on the verge of becoming a child bride. Today, Sandra works for Bank of America in the UK. Earlier on today, before this meeting, I was speaking to a young girl who I met in 2012. She was in the refugee camp in Uganda. And through my program, she dreamt well, dreamt as big as possible, set goals. And today she's here in Canada studying. And for me, that's not the issue. What makes me smile is where my girls and women pay it forward by supporting another girl or another woman to lift them up so that we are many. Because in Africa, they say when you walk alone, you go fast. When you take others, you go far. That's what I tell them. Let's lift other people so that we are collectively going together. We have our voices are heard better when we are more, instead of being individuals and in silos. So really that makes me wake up every morning and I smile knowing, hey, another girl, another woman is going to change their trajectory.
That is amazing. So not only have like you changed the lives of these women, but like you said, you also encourage them to pay it forward. And they're abroad, UK, Canada. That's amazing. I appreciate the work that you're doing. And as you mentioned, the African proverb, going further together, that's a big part of the mission of her network as well. So I can definitely appreciate that. So how do you feel about innovation? How important is innovation in the work that you do?
No, I'm telling you, innovation is the new normal. Without innovation, we shall just perish. And I'll tell you context of education. I remember when I started writing books, my focus was like every child must have a book in their hands. And soon I realized that without using innovation and digital platforms, we won't reach the masses. Today, we've reached over 15 to 20 million children around the world with our books, because we innovated and said, hey, we can have the physical printed books, but we need the ones which they can flip through. They need to see animations. They need to see, things they can see, play and learn and tell stories about a book, so that's where innovation comes in. And even the women entrepreneurs and the young people I talk to, innovation is what is going to differentiate your business from the other business. We may all be selling the same phone, but the phone that will be more appreciated is the one where there's a bit of innovation. And innovation doesn't mean technology or changing the things drastically, but it could be also the way you approach things, the target audience. For example, when I work with refugees or children in refugee camps, I know I have to be innovative in the way I approach them because they're under the government of a certain community. So how do I approach that? Innovation comes in. And of course, innovation is a catalyst to creativity and a catalyst to development. So innovation is the new normal for me in my work and the work I see.
Thank you for sharing that. So what challenges or barriers do you face in your work, and how are you overcoming them?
I'll say, I think, of course, the number one challenge and barrier is the mindset. People don't want to change. They are so stuck in their ways that they don't want to change. So changing the mindset and shifting the way they look at things takes a long time. But of course, we are patient. We know we've traveled this journey. We know that change won't happen in a day, but we know that once we empower them, then the change happens. Of course, we look at 3 levels: self-awareness, knowing who you are, discovering who you are, your values, your principles. Then we enable them look at the social change. What is the social change you want to be part of? And how can we empower you to be part of that? And then the self-awareness, the social awareness. Is this the community you want to live in? If so, what are those things that you can change? So that's one of the challenges. It's a great challenge. Of course, to like any other nonprofit, the second challenge is the funding, where donors come in and out. So you end up spending almost like 80% of your time on looking for donations and money, and only 20% on strategic issues, which of course I've managed to overcome a bit of that to say, hey, we need to focus on strategy, not just implementation and looking for funding. It's still a challenge, but I'm optimistic. I know that the future belongs to those that believe in the power of their dreams. And I have a big dream to transform our systems to break intergenerational cycles of poverty.
I love that. So speaking of big dreams, what does success look like for you and your colleagues? What do you want to see in the future?
Of course, it's about systems change. It's about transformation, policies, but I know that can't happen in isolation. We need to empower proximate leaders, leaders who are at the bottom of the pyramid, the ones who are experiencing the challenge. Once we empower them, then the systems can happen. Otherwise, if we change the systems, but we don't empower our people to meet those systems, then, so it's a collaboration, I must say, collaboration between the people, but shifting power to them to have the agency and make decisions instead of, top down where everything comes to you and then you're not prepared.
Absolutely. So do you have a key set of priorities that you're working on right now?
Yes. So one of them, of course, is to ensure that we have more, that's on my side, really, for children to have content that is relevant, relatable, and culturally appropriate for them in their context. For me, that's so important because growing up, I never saw any books or content that I related to. I always saw white people and white stories and places I never knew. So for me, that's important for children to appreciate who they are, knowing that their backgrounds will not shape their destiny. They can dream of a better future. However, this is who I am, and I see myself in the story. That's number one. Number two, I want to support as many women as possible to unlock investments for their bold ideas. Because once we invest in those women who have incredible, incredible ideas, once we connect them to mentors and resources, we are going to amplify their voices and galvanize their efforts. And that's my dream, to see many women who have big dreams, but dreams which turn into reality.
Well, we share the same big dream, so I'm definitely rooting for you in the work that you do. That's amazing. And how do you feel about the future of impact, like with diversity, equity, and inclusion in Canada?
That's an interesting question. And this may have all kinds of answers, but for me, I think it's about the intentionality. I always question that. How intentional are we when we talk about diversity, inclusion, and equity? So that's a conversation that is so broad, but we need to be more intentional about it. And like I said before, we can't do diversity, inclusion, and equity in a vacuum. We need to develop this whole pipeline of leaders so that if they say, hey, we need more women, Black women on boards, we say, hey, we have 10 of them already prepared. That's the only way we are going to make change. That's the only way we are going to grab those opportunities, if we develop that pipeline. The same applies to the funding we are talking about. Once we prepare the women to have bankable ideas, the minute there's an opportunity where they say we want Black owned or Black led, then we put the women up. So it's, I will say it's not just advocacy, it's action. We need to take action, especially for us as Black people. We need to take action. We need to be a center stage in terms of conversations so that we don't leave for people to speak for us without us. We need to be part of the conversations. That's how we are going to shift the needle.
Absolutely, you're right. So improving the readiness of the community, so when the opportunity arises, like you said, they're prepared. So definitely agree with that. And again, I just want to applaud you for the remarkable work that you're doing and the big vision that you have. Do you have any closing thoughts or calls to action for our community right now?
I think for me, the call to action is about collaboration. That starts from trust. It starts from us being prepared, but collaboration is going to be the game changer and tipping point. We need to stop working in silos and work together, because still using another African proverb, they say the night sky is never lit by one bright star. It's lit by the billions of stars that come together. So we need to come together in order to do bigger things with bigger, much bigger impact. That's how we are going to change the world.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. So again, I want to thank you for your time. I thank you for the work that you're doing. It's absolutely priceless. So thank you. And we also want to close the interview the way that we began, by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we're on, as well as our ancestors and those who toiled without compassion or compensation, our elders and community stewards whose shoulders that we continue to stand on as we build and work together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So again, Rehmah, thank you so much for your time today.
No, thank you so much for having me.